So I'm in downtown Rome, New York at Fort Stanwix National Monument, a National Park Service site, at the recreated fort that figured into both the French and Indian War as well as the American Revolution. It was built in 1758 as a slightly smaller fort as the one represented here, which is the Revolutionary Fort. The ditch was not as wide. Interior buildings were added during the American Revolution and so on. This fort originally was built in 1758 by the British to shore up their control of the Oneida Carry, that transportation hub between Lake Ontario onto the Oswego River, Lake Oneida, a series of creeks, to the Mohawk River, and then onto the Hudson Valley and down to New York and the Atlantic Ocean. So this is one of those key defensive spots. Built of logs, local materials, filled with dirt, and designed in this star-shaped Vauban form of fortress. Fell into disrepair after the French and Indian War, was repaired in 1777, used as colonial defense against the British in the region, and that's when the fort was expanded. It eventually disappeared after the American Revolution, fell into ruin again, like so many of these forts being built of logs and dirt. It was able to, decay and be destroyed over the years. And then another interesting piece of its history is it winds up being recreated around the time of the bicentennial in the late 60s and early 70s with urban renewal in cities afoot. This becomes a National Park Service site. The Park Service needs to be convinced to rebuild a site. They don't like to do reconstructions. They like to represent actual history. They create this fortress right in the middle of downtown, and it opens in time for the bicentennial. So from an American history standpoint, it's also an interesting piece of the way that we remember our history and the way that the bicentennial really brought a focus on that history of the American Revolution. But of course, I'm here for the French and Indian War portion of the history, which I think without that war, you don't have an American Revolution, and so it makes it much more interesting to me.